Hi everyone, it's Andy from Foco Academy, and today I have a special guest, and her name is Paige Davidson. She's an intermittent fasting and a mindset shift coach. Hi Paige, how are you?
Hey, Andy, I'm great. How are you today?
I'm awesome. So Paige has, both me and Paige, we just finished a lower inflammation live longer summit back in February, and she was one of my guest speakers. And of course, she talked about intermittent fasting. And in today's episode, I want to let people have a better understanding what intermittent fasting is. So Paige, why don't you explain to everyone here what's intermittent fasting and how can that benefit people?
Okay, the first thing I want to say about intermittent fasting is that it is not a diet.
Mm.
So many people hear intermittent fasting and they think, oh, this is just one of a long line of diets that I've looked at or heard about. And so many of us are over diets. I don't know about you, Andy, but I am over diets. So I want people to understand right up front that intermittent fasting is not a diet. Diets look at what you eat.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry, hit my microphone. Diets look at what you eat and tell you what to eat. They have lists of good foods and bad foods, and you should eat this, and on this day you have to eat that. Intermittent fasting is so different. Intermittent fasting is looking at when you eat. So when you think about intermittent fasting, you're looking at a pattern, eating in a pattern of time. So every day you decide when you're going to eat your food. You're going to eat your food. You're going to drink any beverages that have, anything in them, coffee with cream or a glass of wine or a beer or a hot chocolate, any beverages and foods you have within a period of time each day. And you're the one that says what that period of time is. And that's called your eating window. So your eating window every day is when you eat your food. And then outside of that eating window is your fasting time. And when you're fasting, you're not eating. Okay. So either you're fasting or you're eating. There's no in between. Sometimes I've heard people say they're dirty fasting, meaning they have coffee in their, with cream or a little bit of water with lemon in it. That is not a thing. Sometimes people want to say dirty fasting is a thing, but it's not. So you're eating your food or you're fasting. And while you're fasting, there are 5 beverages that you can have as much as you want of, and they will not hurt your fast. They will not break your fast. Anything else that you can drink will break your fast. So those 5 things are plain black coffee, no cream, no sugar, nothing added. Plain water, unflavored, no lemon, nothing in that. Sparkling water, like San Pellegrino or Perrier, unflavored, of course.
Mm-hmm.
Plain green tea and plain black tea. So you just look at it as, 2 periods out of the day. One period you're eating, that's your eating window. And then when your eating window is closed, for example, we call it being closed or it's over, you're fasting. And during your fast, that's called a clean fast when you have those 5 beverages that are approved for fasting, Andy.
Great. So my understanding is, because like you said, fasting is not about dieting. And a lot of people nowadays, there's just so many different types of diets out there. There's the Atkins, there's the keto diet, and there's, you can be vegan, you can be vegetarian, there's the paleo. There are just so many different diets out there. But you can incorporate these diets with intermittent fasting. Is that correct from my understanding? So you can eat those diets in the eating window.
Absolutely. One of the greatest things about intermittent fasting is it gives you the power to decide what is best for you and your body. Mm-hmm. And, there's a thing called biodiversity, that there's no one right way to eat for every person. So, Andy, you may do keto and it may work beautifully for you. I may try keto and it doesn't work for me at all.
Mm-hmm.
Or I could eat carnivore.
Correct.
And somebody else could try carnivore and it would just make them sick. But for that person, plant-based works phenomenally.
Mm-hmm.
And so the way we eat in our window is 100% up to us. And part of this process is sort of experimenting and seeing what foods work for us. And a beautiful thing about intermittent fasting is when you're eating within that window of time, which could be 10 hours, 8 hours, 6 hours, 3, 4 hours. It just depends. We'll talk about that at a later time. But when you're in that eating window, you eat however you want to eat. You can follow a diet like keto or carnivore or plant-based. You could do no specific diet and you could just eat what you want. Now, Andy, when I say eat what you want, what does that bring up for you? What do you think about when I say you can eat what you want during your eating window?
When you say eat what you want, then it will go into my cravings. When, that's when I'm thinking of my cravings. For some people, it may be donuts, it may be muffins, maybe chips. Like my kryptonite is chips.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, does that mean I can eat whatever I want in that eating window? I'm going to eat just bags and bags of chips.
That's a great question. So with intermittent fasting, what you want to do is you want to focus on meals and maybe a snack. So say, for example, if I have an eating window of 6 hours, then I probably will have 2 distinct meals and possibly 1 snack. And that's it. Your eating window is not a license to graze and to pig out and to eat everything that you can think of that you ever wanted, that when you're on a diet you couldn't eat. You have to think about what your goal is for doing intermittent fasting. A lot of people, it's just for the health. A lot of people, it's to lose weight. And so, as well as I do, Andy, that, our choices have to match our goals if we want to reach those goals. So I lost 110 pounds through intermittent fasting. And sometimes I made choices that were super healthy. Most of the time I did. Sometimes I had a sundae, or I had a donut, or I had a couple of glasses of wine. Again, you're in charge, but you have to be responsible.
Correct.
And you have to be accountable. And, part of this process is learning to be empowered to make good decisions for yourself. And I like to follow an 80-20 rule, where I eat 80% of the time. I choose good, whole, healthy, natural foods. I stay away from processed foods as much as possible, stay away from processed sugars as much as possible. And then 20% of the time, I'll have a sundae, or I'll have a couple of cookies. It's just balance. So that's a real packed statement to say you can eat what you want. And the biggest goal really is learning what your body likes, learning what foods work really well for you and what foods make you feel good. So if I eat pasta, and I love pasta, but I know pasta gives me stomach upset, but I eat it anyway because I love it.
Correct.
I eventually am going to decide, well, I could eat that if I wanted to.
Correct.
But I think I'm going to choose not to have that because I just don't feel well when I eat that. So there's a lot to that statement. You can eat what you want.
I love about that. I love when you talk about, what you're eating, what you want. And even just backing up just a little bit, you talked about, each person's a bio individual. And I totally in with you there, because like everyone is different. We're different by our genetic makeup. We're different by the foods that we were introduced to when we're growing up. And we're very different by all the our environment, how we're exposed to. So yeah, some people may work better eating more of a carnivore diet or vegetarian diet, keto diet, whatever it may be. And I love what you said about that. It's great to just try different foods and see how you feel, because I think that's important, because a lot of people may have in their head, they may like the taste of the food or they like how it looks, how it smells, but they don't really think about how they feel after it. And I think that's huge, right?
It
I think
is
that's
huge.
very important.
It is huge. And I love the fact that we have all of this time that we're fasting. And that really gives us space to think about what we're doing, to think about the choices that we're making, and to really pin down how we feel when we eat certain foods. Because when we graze and eat all day long, something may make us feel unwell, but how do you narrow it down and decide what I ate that made me not feel well when you're eating all day long? And so when you're eating within your window, you know what you've eaten very specifically. Right. I would be able to tell you exactly what I had in my window, Andy. So then if something made me not feel well, then I could kind of narrow that down and say, I didn't feel great when I ate that last time. And even though I love that food, I just don't feel that great. So what can I eat that I love that makes me feel really good?
That's great. I never even thought about that. That's really great advice, because like when you got such a short window, that eating window, regardless if it's a 6 hour, 8 hour, 10 hour, and like you said, we'll go over a little bit about the specifics on intermittent fasting on our next episode. But since it's such a short window specific on each day, you're gonna remember what you eat because you want to be eating something that you're gonna be happy with, obviously. And you also mentioned about the 80-20 rule, which I think is brilliant. Because a lot of people, they're either going to be, like you said, they're going to graze all day long and eat whatever they can in that window, or they're going to go, oh man, I just have to eat so healthy. I need to stay on this diet. And when doing the 80-20, it's great because you're eating 80% as healthy as whole foods as you can with as least amount of processed foods. But that 20%, you're still allowing to, I don't want to say reward yourself, but to feel that you're not being depraved, because I want people to realize,
this is real life, and we have social engagements, and we have birthday parties, and we have social events, and nobody's going to do anything that makes them feel left out or excluded. And we have to be realistic. We really have to be realistic. And so those kinds of things, an occasional piece of birthday cake is a part of life. That's just living life with your family and your friends. And the thing that I like about the 80-20 rule is that when I have those 20% foods, I call them, I make the decision that I'm going to have that piece of birthday cake.
Correct.
I have it. I own it. Yeah. I enjoy it. I don't feel guilty about it. I don't beat myself up about it because that is part of my process. It is perfectly okay for me to have that piece of cake. I'm not doing anything wrong. I'm not a bad person. I'm not cheating when I have that piece of birthday cake. And so it gives me some really nice peace of mind when I have those types of foods, because it's okay to do that on occasion. And, you can eat them as much as you want, but if you have a goal, whether it's to be healthy, whether it's to improve your health numbers, or whether it's to lose weight, you have to eat for your goal.
Correct.
And so that really is something that's kind of a mantra that I have, and if I'm wanting something, I'll think about, okay, when have I had a 20% food? Has it been a while? And if it's not been very long, then that's what I'll say. I'll say, okay, now you can have that if you want it. Of course, it's your decision. But is that moving you closer to your goal, or is it moving you further away from your goal? Is what I ask myself. So am I moving closer to my goal or further from my goal by making that choice?
That is great. I can totally see your whole mindset coaching coming in. And of course, Paige is a mindset specialist, mindset shift specialist. And I think that's important because a lot of people, they feel so guilty, when they think that they cheated, right? But allowing this 80-20 window, you don't have to feel guilty. Just own it. You as long as it's 20%, it's not 80% of the unhealthy foods. I think it's okay. You have to sometimes just own it, accept it, and everyone needs to live, right? We need to be able to eat the pizza or eat that cookie once in a while. It's as long as it's not our main food groups, right? So I think that is amazing. Paige, why don't you tell us all the health benefits of intermittent fasting? Because you mentioned a little bit about weight loss, a little bit about getting better numbers. or even better health. Like, why don't you go a little bit more into detail on that, all the benefits of intermittent fasting?
Okay. Almost universally, pretty soon after people start practicing intermittent fasting, they notice that they have this amazing energy. And I know you and your wife are intermittent fasters. Did you notice that? Do you notice that when you're intermittent fasting, you have amazing energy, Andy?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Okay. And that's just about a universal thing that people experience. What about brain fog? Have you ever experienced brain fog before, especially before you started intermittent fasting, where you just didn't think you could think right, or you just felt like you were in a fog? It took you a while to figure things out. We hear lots of people talk about having brain fog, and when you start intermittent fasting, that brain fog clears up. It just clears up. I have people come up to me and that know I'm an intermittent faster and ask me about my skin. What they ask me is what my skincare products are.
Correct.
Because they say, "Oh, your skin is beautiful. What do you use?" I don't use anything really. I'm very haphazard. I'm afraid to say. I hate to say it, but I'm very haphazard about all of that. Skincare routine. Some women go into the bathroom to get ready for bed, and it's an hour later, when they emerge, because they've done all of their stuff. I don't do all of that. But people cannot believe when they hear that I'm 59. And that is because of intermittent fasting. And, I'll just quickly tell you the reason that happens, that you have this amazing thing going on with your skin when you intermittent fast, is that during your fasting time, human growth hormone is released in your body. I mean, it really gets kicked up. And so that causes that turnover of cells and that, new cell production. And so that's where you get that effect from this, this amazing skin that we hear a lot of people talk about that. What else? What are some of the things you've had, Andy?
Well, I want to go into a little bit deeper about the human growth hormone, because I don't think people, they don't talk about that much. Because you mentioned you're 59. Now, obviously, you don't look 59. You look amazing, right? And
I wasn't fishing for a compliment, but thank you.
But what people don't realize is human growth hormone. Your body normally produces that, and you have a lot of that as a kid. Right. That's why, you bounce back, because it's good for energy too, but it also gives you that brightness in your skin, that youthfulness. But as we get older, our human growth hormones start depleting. And it's great that you talk about the whole intermittent fasting side of it. When you're not eating, is when your body is actually, is producing it on its own and is bumping it up. So it's a great way to almost, like you said, to give you to look a lot younger, and rather than trying to hide you're looking old, you're actually becoming younger from the inside out. And I love that you brought that up, because a lot of people don't think about it as well. What are the one benefits? And how about looking and feeling younger for free too, right?
That's exactly it. Because people have called intermittent fasting, the anti-aging way to eat, because you literally are aging in reverse. You're losing weight. You're feeling amazing. You've got this great energy. You have this glow and vitality to you that people notice. I mean, it's something that people notice. And even if they don't know I'm doing intermittent fasting, they will comment on how much energy I have and how young that I'm looking. I look like I'm aging in reverse. And so that's intermittent fasting.
That is great. And I think a lot of people should look into that just for that reason alone. And, a lot of people don't realize, like you talk about all these different diets, and, there are so many, everyone's looking for a silver bullet to look younger with all these creams and lotions and potions that they're putting on their face, hoping that it can make them look younger. This is free.
Yes, expensive. I was going to say all of the potions, and I mean, I've looked at those things. I can't afford those things, but I can afford intermittent fasting because it is free.
Exactly. And, with intermittent fasting, and I'm sure we can go into this a little bit further down, but I just want to give a little bit more sneak peek of the added benefits when you're going a little bit more extended intermittent fasting, like when you go into this 2-3 day period.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit more, maybe even about, like autophagy?
Yeah, absolutely. So autophagy sounds like a big, scary word, but autophagy is a natural process that everyone's body goes through. And it's a process that the body uses to clean its cells out. Okay. So cells over time build up junk and particles. And I can't explain that scientifically what all is in those cells.
Correct.
I can just say it's junky.
Mm-hmm.
And
I agree.
And it bogs us down. And through autophagy, again, as I said, is a process that happens when we're not eating.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're sleeping, autophagy happens if you sleep long enough, but autophagy doesn't kick in until you've been fasting for a while. And it's different for different people.
Mm-hmm.
But that's one reason when later on we get into the length of your window, it will depend on your goal.
Correct.
But if you want to improve your health and if you want to seriously lose weight, then you want to fast as long as possible, because the longer you fast, the more autophagy gets ramped up.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so cleaning out your cells, this autophagy is what really gives us so many health benefits. And I will tell you that when I started intermittent fasting, I needed to lose weight, of course, but it wasn't to lose weight, because I will honestly tell you, I did not believe my sister when she told me it was not a diet.
Correct,
I was like, no way. That sounds like some crazy diet. But when she explained to me that through intermittent fasting, you can reduce inflammation in your body, that got my attention. Mm-hmm. Because at that moment, I was suffering from plantar fasciitis in one foot and Achilles tendonitis in the other foot. And those are inflammation-driven conditions. I didn't even know that at the time.
Correct.
But I did my research. I found out that this is legit, deep research that has gone into this, a breadth of research. And it is clear that autophagy heals inflammation in the body. So I started intermittent fasting and I jumped right in. When I heard you had to do quite a few hours to get that benefit, I jumped in at 19 and 20 hours, and that was hard. I recommended my clients to go in more slowly, but I was desperate, Andy, to get out of that pain. And so 2 weeks after I started, just 2 weeks, I was not limping out of pain anymore. Now, I still had pain. I wasn't cured suddenly after 2 weeks,
Correct.
But it was reduced enough so that I could walk normally. And I had been limping. It was debilitating. I was close to not being able to do my job because I had to do a lot of walking. So that felt like just a miracle to me. And I thought, I'm going to keep this up. And so I continued. And after about 3 months, I still had pain, and I just wanted out of that. So I thought, I did my research, and I found out if you do some longer extended fasting,
correct,
you get way more autophagy benefits.
Correct.
And so at 3 months, I added in a 43-hour fast every week, along with my regular fasting.
Nice.
And that did it, Andy. But about 5.5 months after I started intermittent fasting, I was 100% cured from those conditions. 100%. It was gone, and it has not come back. And that clearly healed my inflammation. But I want to go further with the inflammation because there are so many diseases that we always have called lifestyle diseases that's confusing. People don't know what that means when they, you say, well, you have that because that's a lifestyle disease.
Right.
None of us knows what that means. What did I do to cause myself to get diabetes? Or what did I do to cause myself to get Alzheimer's or have a heart attack? I mean, we clearly know we didn't eat well, but that's really all we know. What we know now is that inflammation is a driver of all of these diseases: Alzheimer's disease, diabetes, strokes, heart attacks, hypertension, all of these things, even these conditions that I talked about that are not fatal, but they're terrible. They're all implicated in having inflammation driving them. And we know that intermittent fasting heals inflammation in our body. And so I will always do, inflammation. I will always do intermittent fasting. I will always do intermittent fasting for the rest of my life. And this will surprise you, Andy, but it does really not have anything to do with weight. It is because of that inflammation. I can practice disease prevention with consistent daily intermittent fasting. And both of my parents, Andy, had dementia. My mother had Alzheimer's disease and my father had Lewy body dementia.
Wow.
And I will tell you, they're horrible diseases and it's heartbreaking. And, I want to reduce or totally cut my risk, for having dementia. And so I know I have proven that you can heal inflammation with intermittent fasting. And so that's why I will always do it. I will always practice it for the rest of my life. So autophagy is what causes all of those improvements, those deep improvements in health and disease prevention.
That is great, because a lot of people, like you said, autophagy, what's that? It's such a complicated, sciencey, geeky word. But, what you talk about autophagy is great, because like you said, inflammation is something that happens to everybody. Like, I'm sorry, everyone's going to have inflammation. It is a lifestyle disease. It is how you live your life, right? What you eat, what you're exposed to, who you're exposed to, your genetics. It's a little bit of everything, and everyone is about individual. So everyone's going to be affected differently. But like what you said was really good. It does take over a period of time, right? So since it takes over a period of time, a lot of people don't realize when they do eventually start having symptoms for Alzheimer's or diabetes, like, well, why did it happen to me? Well, it's because you didn't realize it was happening over a period of time, and you're getting more and more inflammation. And once it gets to a point where inflammation gets so much, it's almost like overspilling a bucket. And that's when things start happening. And like you said, with autophagy, this is great, because when you have inflammation, you have all these bad things happening inside your cells, right? You're almost getting these bad cells fighting your good cells. And autophagy is the body's way of eating all these bad parts of these cells, which quells down inflammation. So like you said, it's great, because inflammation is something that you do not want in your body, unless it's acute, like from a cut or something, then that makes sense, right? Acute
is a good. We need to make sure people understand that, Andy. Yes. Acute inflammation, if you cut yourself or, have an injury, then those tissues are going to become inflamed. Okay. And that's what you want. That's the body healing that injury. But that is short-term, short-lived acute inflammation. What we're talking about is that insidious, silent, chronic inflammation that we have in our body that we don't even know is happening. And it happens over years. And so by the time you're pre-diabetic, by the time you're diabetic, you have had this inflammation problem for 10 to 12 years or longer.
Correct.
So that's why, that's why intermittent fasting is not some diet that you go on and off. It is the way to eat. It is the way to manage your food. It is something you do consistently every day. And over time, that is how you fight that inflammation, through consistent long-term or expressed autophagy.
That is awesome. So let me just summarize from what you talked about today is the benefits of intermittent fasting. Well, first of all, what's intermittent fasting? To summarize intermittent fasting, you have an eating window and a fasting window. And during the eating window, regardless of what that window is going to be, and we'll talk about this in the future, future episode, is you can eat responsibly for that eating window, 20%, like 80% as healthy as possible, 20%, maybe fudging a little bit, not going too crazy. And then you're fasting for the rest of the fasting window. And then for the benefits, of course, depending on how long you intermittent fast, it's a great way to lose weight. You're going to have better clarity. You're going to have, more clarity in your thinking. You're going to have less brain fog. So you're going to be more productive at work, obviously, right? So that's a huge one, especially everyone sitting at home right now working, right? You're going to have more energy. I think that's a huge one, because a lot of people have crashes during the day, right? So you're gonna have better energy, better, better mental clarity, got better. And then you're also going to start quelling inflammation, right? You're gonna have more beautiful skin, look younger from the inside out. I think that's a huge one, to be honest. To me, that one's worth doing already just for anything else, right? But on top of that, you got the autophagy. I think the autophagy is very important. And for extended extended intermittent fasting, then we can start even maybe reversing some of these chronic conditions, right? And I'm sure we can talk about that in a future episode. But this is great. Thank you so much, Paige, for letting people know, first of all, what intermittent fasting is, because I know that term is being thrown around so much. And
it is, it really is. And it's having the word diet attached to it, which just really kills me. And I think it's because I was guilty myself of thinking that at first. And so I'm on a mission, Andy, to make sure that people know that this is not a diet. You are in charge. You eat what you want. You make your own decisions. You are empowered to make those decisions for yourself.
That is perfect. Remember, everyone, it's not a diet, and it's safe for anyone to do, right? And it's, I think it's simple. It may not be easy, but I think it's a very simple way to reclaim back your health, to claim back your lifestyle, to maybe lose a few pounds, right? So thank you, Paige, for today. On our next episode, Paige, we're gonna, you're gonna share how to do an easy step to ease into intermittent fasting, because a lot of people think, well, there's no way I can only eat in a certain window. I like eating throughout the day. And, I'm sure we can talk a little bit about the benefits of why you need to shorten that window and why grazing throughout the day may not actually be a good idea. But we'll talk about that.
We'll definitely get into that. That advice that doctors have given us. Eat every 2 or 3 hours. Keep your metabolism up. We're going to talk about why that is not correct.
See, everyone, you can't miss the next episode. We're going to be talking about this around the same time next week. But I think it'll be very exciting, because for everyone that wants to start intermittent fasting, at least now you know what it is, what the benefits are. And, we're going to be working with Paige, and she's going to give you the little step-by-step, little step-by-steps to ease you into intermittent fasting and, get you back on your journey to better health.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Paige. I'll see you next week.
Bye-bye.